Matt, we've been told by several investigative agencies that the man they believe fired these shots is 64-year-old Stephen Paddock, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, Paddock, P-A-D-D-O-C-K, of Mesquite, Nevada. The authorities are now searching his house in Mesquite. They have told us, and the databases indicate this as well, that the woman they're looking for, Mary Lou Danley, lived with him. We don't know what their relationship was, but the police described her as the companion or roommate. They were apparently living together. We don't know for how long. We believe she is 62. You had asked me earlier whether he was known to the authorities. I have not heard any federal authorities say that he was known to them, but I'm told that he did have a criminal past and was known to local law enforcement in Nevada. What that criminal past is, I don't know at this point, but apparently his name was familiar to them. This doesn't help answer the big question here of why. There's no indication so far at this early stage that this was a terror attack. We're coming up now on roughly
5 hours.
5 hours since this happened. They're obviously looking through his house, looking to see when he planned this, why he did it, whether they can find any indication of that. But at this point, no known connection to terrorism. But clearly, that's an important question they're trying to answer. And there's heavy involvement here from federal agencies to help the local authorities who remain in charge of this investigation.
And as always, Pete, in the aftermath of an event like this, there are a lot of conflicting reports. We've had people tell us that this shooting lasted for between 5 and 10 minutes. Other people say this went on for almost an hour. Do you have any indication, Pete, that when police finally got to the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel and breached the door, did they get involved in any kind of a gunfight with Mr. Paddock? Was he still shooting out the window? How did this all end?
I don't know the answer to that, Matt. That's a good question. The police had earlier said that he was dead. Whether he shot himself or whether they shot him, I don't know the answer to that.
And as we understand it, the suspect, Stephen Paddock, lived with the woman of interest that police now seek. Her name, Mary Lou Danley, and there are conflicting reports. We just don't know definitively whether or not she was actually in Las Vegas tonight, whether she was part of this or even at the hotel. This is an open question at this hour.
And Pete, take us through another aspect of this. As we play that videotape again, and more importantly, perhaps listen to the sounds that we're hearing coming from that videotape. This is the sound of gunfire that we're not really accustomed to hearing. We have, unfortunately, in the past, heard incidents where there have been mass shootings, but the sound of the gunfire is different than what we're hearing on this tape. Take me through that.
Right. This is the sound of gunfire you would hear from Iraq or Afghanistan from the U.S. military. That's automatic weapons fire. That means that somebody is holding the trigger down and the weapon just continues to fire as fast as it can chamber a new round and get it out the muzzle. These weapons are heavily restricted by the federal government. It's illegal to own a weapon that can fire like that unless it's registered with ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosive. And right now, by the way, ATF, that's one of the federal agencies assisting here, they're doing an emergency trace to try to figure out where that weapon came from. It's possible to acquire a weapon that's made to fire automatically like that. The U.S. military uses them extensively overseas. It's also possible to buy a weapon that isn't intended to fire that way and then modify it, make certain changes to the inside. And if you're experienced with firearms, it's not a difficult thing to do. It's illegal to do that, but it's not a difficult thing to do. So that's one of the questions we're going to have to get answered here is what weapon was this, what the caliber of the weapon was, when this person acquired it, how many rounds he had with him. And these are all questions that are going to be pretty easy to answer here in the coming hours. We just don't have the answers yet.
And as you and I and Savannah talked about earlier, you know, getting a weapon like that into a place like a Las Vegas hotel when everybody going in and out is either carrying or wheeling some sort of a suitcase, that is not, unfortunately, a very big challenge.
No, and people, people check into hotels in Las Vegas with all kinds of things: golf clubs, tennis rackets. It's a resort community, so it's not unusual to see people with big pieces of luggage, and people are carrying firearms with them all over the country all the time. They're in their vehicles. The one place you can't take them is on an airplane. But you can check them onto an airplane, so you could. But that's not the case here, because the suspect, Stephen Paddock, and also the woman who they're eager to find, Mary Lou Donley, lived nearby, near Las Vegas, in the community of Mesquite, Nevada. And as I mentioned earlier, they're now aggressively searching his home. They're also looking for the two cars that were registered to him, a Hyundai Tucson and a Chrysler Pacifica touring vehicle. The police have earlier put out the license numbers out there, and they're asking people to keep a sharp eye out for those vehicles because they want to try to find them as well, because they may hold important evidence too.